Let's go ahead and do the meeting beginning ritual, everyone. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬。请坐下。Please be seated.
So I'm going to launch off into what I was going to speak about this week, and it is, I think, it moves well from what Bill was discussing into the topic that I chose to speak about, which is our life's path and how that, how do we choose that path? How do we know what to follow and how to follow that? Is part of an instructor training program that I have here at our center. I've been discussing with our assistants, both our young assistants and our adult assistants, how do we know what to follow? And how do we know what our path is? How can we identify that? And how do we know when to exert effort and when to pull back and reflect, contemplate, meditate? And what I've found useful over the years is exploring this path from multiple perspectives, from studying from learned scholars and from great teachers. And in my exploration, I come across quite a few, and one in particular regarding life's phases is a PhD named Angeles Arrien, and this is regarding being able to follow our path. And how do we make the decision? How do we know our direction? Where do we go when we see that fork in the road? These are all relevant issues for all of us, I think, at various junctures during our life that we typically encounter. And it's hard to know sometimes what is the right way to go. How do we follow the correct path? I think one of the things that has been useful for me is recognizing that there are phases in life that we all pass through. And this is a wonderful book by Dr. Arrien that I would like to recommend, where she describes the life path, and this is essentially formulated by indigenous cultures throughout history. In her studies of these ancient cultures, themes emerge when examining the evolution of the individual's life path. And she has a distinct four-tier system that she has come up with when examining these paths. And this seems to fit very clearly with my experience. And then also, as we examine these same principles from other cultures and other learned teachers, the first phase being the phase of the warrior. With this phase, you'll notice I chose the cool tiger design here. My Chinese zodiac astrological sign is the tiger, but I think it's a fair representation of the warrior with the spirit that typically embodies. And this archetype typically reflects our quest for individuation and autonomy. As you know, my practice incorporates the study of martial arts, and in this physical practice, we develop our external power balanced with internal reflection and meditation in order to make choices about our life. So self-discipline is really the key. We view this as a fire engendered energy. So in this fire, we develop the self-discipline, and our warrior becomes the genesis of our life's journey. So it's where we exert the yang. We study yang energy. How is that empowering to us? And then what fears are we facing, and how do we overcome the obstacles to our own success and thus gain fulfillment? One of the wonderful stories that Master William shared with me when we were in the midst of building the center, and it was quite a struggle to go through this process and make it come to fruition, was that, I was somewhat conflicted in thinking that if I'm following the Tao correctly, that things should be fluid, they should be effortless, that they should follow the flow of their own accord. And so when I was going through this vast struggle to make this dream that I had come to reality, Joanne and myself, of course, Master William told me the story of the chrysalis, and in essence, to paraphrase, and I hope that I'm telling it correctly, he said that the story is of a young boy who sees the chrysalis, who sees the caterpillar who is encased in the cocoon, attempting to break free. And out of a pure spirit and desire to help, he decided to aid in the process of shedding the cocoon. So he cut the cocoon open to be able to free the caterpillar so that it was able to take flight as the butterfly, but only to find that it was unable to accomplish that task. What he didn't realize is that the struggle to break free of the cocoon is what creates the strength of the butterfly and its wings to be able to fly. So it is the struggle which actually creates the ability to move forward and to evolve into the beauty of the butterfly and to take flight. That was a wonderful story and a wonderful analogy to me that showed that everything doesn't necessarily have to be easy to be following the path. Someone else who I respect greatly said that we follow the path as long as there are hints, suggestions that we are moving in the right direction. And there's a trail of breadcrumbs, and we follow the breadcrumbs. And as long as there are breadcrumbs and there's a trail, we can still follow it, even though it may be difficult and hard to pursue. So I think this is apropos given the phase that we're discussing at this point. One of my martial arts teachers in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu also said that he identified this phase in a slightly different context of phase of the young master, the middle-aged master, and the old master. He said that the young master is filled with yang, filled with the energy of needing to prove himself. So the desire and the need to fight, to conquer, to win, to overcome the opponent. The middle-aged master begins to develop an understanding that meditation and contemplation yield the process of overcoming oneself, not another. And that the old master is simply the embodiment of the flower, that he is the smiling sage who can open up and turn into the whirlwind at the blink of an eye and then become the flower once again with the most minute sense of ease. So, it seems that, again, these archetypal images, and when we refer to this, we typically refer to the Jungian perspective when it comes to archetypes, run across cultural boundaries. The second phase, the way of the healer. Our healer archetype, embodies the essence of compassion. How do we get in touch with our heart? How do we recognize and follow our truth? Do we connect with nature and its mother-like yin or female essence? Is the yin, this one is the yin to the warrior's yang, so that we're creating this balance. And how do we actively embody the essence of this archetype? How do we use our strength and our knowledge developed in the warrior stage to be able to heal? It's been my experience that, this is the middle-aged master, the one who has recognized that just the exerting force is not all there is to life, that this development of compassion, of love, of following the heart. When Joanne and I were married, we were married by a Native American medicine man. And one of the things that he said was very simple but very profound. He said, you have to always talk from your heart, speak from your heart, not from your head. Talk from your heart. And boy, this is really has been a life theme for me, with really understanding how to open my heart, because when I was young, I was very closed, very angry. And this phase of my life has all been about this opening and this development of the yin. In fact, I have heart problems because of my depletion of the yin in the yang phase of my life. So it's been all about balance for a number of years now. The third phase is the way of the visionary. So as we evolve and as we develop these capacities for compassion, empathy, and awareness, this leads to develop and express our creativity. What are our ideas? How can we actively express them without judgment? And how can we observe and appreciate others without judgment? How can we express truth through creativity? And to me, this is an essence of problem solving as well. How can we contribute to the world and contribute to society, contribute to this beauty of the Tao, of the universe, of God? And how can we get in touch with the intuition? I've always marveled at Joanne's ability to just innately understand, have a feeling that she can go with, and I logically work my way through all series of problems until I reach what I consider to be a logical conclusion. And while that's valid and reasonable, it also needs to be accompanied by that truth from the heart, that intuition. And I think this phase, if you look at almost the shamanic principle of the visionary or the vision keeper, is one that sort of leads us and yields a higher level of understanding. And the last, I thought Derek would appreciate this one. Yoda, he's one of my favorite guys, is the way of the teacher, the way of the sage. So the teacher archetype differs from our concept of the teacher. Most of us presume the teacher to be the learned sage, and we typically seek the Mr. Miyagi. I think this kind of goes back to Derek's reference to the Bodhisattva, because of our confusion and our pain welling up inside ourselves. In the wisdom traditions, the sage is venerated, but ultimately sages tell us that all knowledge is self-knowledge. Our lessons come from our life experience and close examinations of the outcomes engendered by our choices and actions in life. We are who we are. The teacher accepts this truth and shares his experience with others in a compassionate, meaningful, authentic manner. He doesn't try to be something or someone that he is not. And the question is, how can you share your experience with others in a meaningful and helpful manner? I think that many times we have an image of how we can share our experience, but in reality, just who we are is perfectly fine. We are in our phase in life, whatever that phase is, whatever path we've been on, and someone, somewhere, can benefit from our experience. And this chain of karma that connects us to other entities, other people, somehow it all seems to work, that this incredible tapestry pulls people toward us, and we to others, that we can learn from and that we can aid in the process of their growth as well. That seems to be what it's all about, is our ability to help one another. So the question becomes, do we adhere to only the characteristics of the archetypal phase that we're passing through? And I don't think that we do. It seems as though we exhibit qualities of all the archetypes during each phase. But if we do acknowledge the general trend or the flow of the life's journey, and we exert our energy appropriately, and we accentuate the flow of that phase, our efforts generally yield favorable results. So then the question becomes, how do we recognize that flow? Well, there are signs and symbols. So the intuition being one of the primary indicators. Follow the gut. You follow your feeling. You become aware of that. Recognize coincidences, because coincidences are these harmonizations of the universe that I don't personally believe can be explained away by mathematical formulas which indicate the likelihood of occurrences. I just think that things move in patterns, and that we're given indicators that things are flowing in the appropriate direction. Now, there are in multiple cultures many symbols that many people believe in. So if we just take a look at some of them in the Pythagorean theorem to trace the origin of all things to numbers, this theory being suggested, or all events confirmed by observation of various numeric relations or analogies to them in the phenomena of the universe. Well, what the heck's that mean? That's something I pulled off of Wikipedia. Basically means that those who believe in the Pythagorean theorem is that numbers can tell you everything. If you look at the representation of the numbers, that they can give you a hint, give you a symbol, an essence of whether you're moving in a correct path or not. I believe, I don't know a great deal about it, but astrology seems to follow similar patterns. And if you're a big Matrix fan, then you could probably say that this would more than likely be the case. I don't know whether this is the case or not, but I'm just saying that that is one representation or symbol of a method of kind of taking a look at something small being an indicator of something large, giving us hints. One that has been known throughout history is the I Ching. So the classic of changes, or the book of changes. I'm sure Derek can speak more intelligently about this than I. And I believe that one of his next journeys is to translate and annotate the I Ching, which I'm greatly looking forward to. So this is the 8 trigrams, or the Bakwa. And I find this fascinating because many people approach this from the perspective of it's a fortune-telling device. And as it has been explained to me, this is not really the case. this is where coincidence and the lining up of these symbols seems to really come into play. So one throws the yarrow stalks or the coins as the intention is held for the question that one would have. And then what we begin to do is look at the recurring patterns and the corresponding explanation in the I Ching that helps us to recognize an emerging pattern in life. And by recognizing that this symbol has given us a hint of the way things are moving, that then we can better understand where we should exert our energy and where we should pull back. So this makes a great deal of sense to me, and this has been employed for many, many years in a variety of cultures in a variety of ways, just taking different shapes based on the culture. So I'd say from a purely objective standpoint, if you look at, from a pragmatic approach, that many cultures came up with these principles on an anecdotal level, and they've been able to glean truth from these practices, much the same as, for instance, Chinese medicine. We know that it works, we just don't know really why it works. And the most modern, I've got a friend who has a lab at UC Irvine that is purely dedicated to the study of energy-based medicine. He's got the highest level of technological devices available to mankind to be able to measure everything involved in energy-based medicine, and the bottom line is he still doesn't have the slightest idea of what the qi really is. What is that stuff? Can't measure it. But yet at the same time, on an anecdotal level, you see plenty of evidence that it exists and that it works. So I would assert that this is the same of this idea of intention and symbols, that we can look from the anecdotal evidence, recognize from that there is a truth to it, and then test it out ourselves, see if it works. It's very useful to have someone who is well educated in aiding us in this process, because if you just go by a I Ching and try to kind of do your own thing, I think it's there can be a degree of success with that. But as Derek has mentioned many times, there are true masters of these traditions who are able to a little bit better than we are, because they've been trained in the methods by which one should approach the practice. And I think I'll leave it for Derek to speak more about that. So this is all part of the tapestry of the Tao, how it all seems to fit together. And that's why I love this picture that Derek brought back during the 2000, I think it was the 2005, yeah, there's the date, 2005 trip to Taiwan, because it reminds me of the tapestry of it being all of these wonderful, incredible individual pieces that all come together to form this beautiful harmony, this oneness, unity. And that's how I think it all fits together. And I think it fits very well with what Bill was saying about the process of ritual and how that reminds us on a more than daily basis to kind of get out of our entrenched mind, being stuck in reality with quotation marks, our sense of relative reality, and begin to move ourselves into the absolute, move ourselves into the spiritual realm, while still staying connected to our day-to-day functions and experiences. So that is it for me today. I hope everybody has a great Sunday and an awesome 4th of July, and for those of you who celebrate that. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much, Ed. Ed, I'm most curious about one thing, and that is how you see yourself in this paradigm, in this framework. I see you as having aspects, very strong aspects in all four archetypes. Is there one particular phase that you feel you're moving through, or do you feel as if you have integrated the fourfold archetypes?
Well, I've thought a fair amount about this, Derek, and I think, yes, I exhibit components to all of the above, but I think I'm still really in the way of the healer, which is the second, more so than any other. I view myself as somebody who's walked down a path that I can aid in the process of sharing my experience with others. But and yes, technically I am a teacher because that's what I do at UCLA and that's what I do here. But I don't view myself in any way as a learned sage. I aspire to hopefully get there someday, but don't think I'm even close. As far as being a visionary is concerned, I'm still learning to trust my intuition. So I would say that my wife is much further along that path than I. I'm still kind of bound by logic in a lot of ways. But I am definitely, and have been for some time, really focused on the development of the yin and the development of the healing spirit and compassion, and trying to eliminate judgment toward others and experience in general. So I'd say I'm kind of in that second phase, and in my sensei's threefold description, I'd say I'm kind of in that middle-aged master phase, pretty heavily into that at this point.
That's fascinating. I think I thought of your younger career as a fighter, of course. So that would be the warrior phase. But your recent history for me is much more of a visionary, only because a kata itself is essentially your vision taking shape.
It is. I agree with you, and I think that's an example of how the phases can intertwine periodically. But on the whole, I think that I'm still kind of in that second phase and moving toward the third, and I'm quite content to be that because I don't think there's any big rush job. I know that in many cultures, particularly those that believe in reincarnation, they don't feel like any particular rush to try to get to the end because there's multiple opportunities to give it another shot, I think. So I hope to do the best that I can with what I've got during this phase. So I'll keep moving forward as best I can.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting closing ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传世一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, guys, we are done.